Okay, today I'm going to be looking at the track Wild Child by The Ventures. And I love The Ventures. I have looked at a couple of Ventures tracks previously on this channel, but those were Christmas tunes. I've not looked at any non-Christmassy Ventures stuff. I was just listening to this track the other day. I thought, that sounds great. I'm going to learn it and I'm going to turn it into a YouTube tutorial video. And as you will hear, it's quite heavily indebted to both Louie Louie and You Really Got Me, but it's done in kind of a fun and charming way, I think. It's got an amazing fuzz bass line, and then over the top of that you've got this fantastic kind of country chicken picking guitar. So I'm just going to play it through for you as best I can. I only learned it yesterday, so it might not be flawless, but let me do that and then I'll break down what's going on. So there we are, lots of fun to play this one. And as I said, this one came out in 1966. It appears on the Ventures album Wild Things. And this album, I think, marked a move away from the earlier kind of surf-inspired Ventures sound towards a kind of heavier, more rock and roll kind of a sound. And there's lots of great stuff going on in this one, lots of worthwhile stuff to learn, I think. The power chord riffage is kind of quite straightforward and easy, but then we've got this more intricate country style stuff, which is quite challenging, I think. You're going to need to have pretty good technique, good control over your bending. There's a bit of hybrid picking in there as well. So let's get started and I'll break down exactly what's going on. So the tune kicks off with this great fuzz bass line. And that bass line was actually sampled by a kind of hip-hop style band. I can't remember the name of the band, but they put out a tune which was really just based around a sample of that bass line. I'm not surprised. It's a great sounding bass line. It's just kind of crying out to be sampled on some kind of hip-hop or dance track. And the notes that I'm playing here, we've got A, F sharp, B and E, obviously based on the tune Louie Louie. It's got exactly the same rhythm as that. That really provides the harmonic backdrop of the tune, and then over the top of that we've got this fantastic kind of country style guitar happening. And nearly all of the lead guitar stuff is coming from the A major pentatonic scale. That's where you get that kind of country sound from. So you might like to start out by just visualizing your A major pentatonic scale. It's all played down in the second position here. So if you're thinking in caged terms, this is the G form. So you've got your A major chord here in the G form, and then around that you can see your A major pentatonic scale. I like to start and end my scales on the root note when I'm practicing them, so I will start with this note here on my pinky, just go up through the scale, be really helpful just to visualize that scale as you're learning this tune. It's mostly taken from that position of the scale. Occasionally we're just going up into this little box here. This is a very common move where you're just climbing up out of that main position of the scale along the length of the 3rd string, and then you can get yourself into this little box shape here around the 5th fret. So as far as the actual lead guitar part goes, it's based on 4-bar phrases, and the opening lick goes like this. And that's kind of a fixed part which is repeated, lasts for 2 bars, and then in the next 2 bars you kind of got a window where you can play various different fills and variations. This is what you hear happening on the recording. So I'm going to take you through all of those, but if we just learn this opening phrase, we've got, starting on the 4th string here, E, F sharp and A. It's kind of a pickup phrase happening on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. It's played quite quickly. I think on the recording all of those notes are probably picked, but what I find myself doing is just hammering on between the E and the F sharp there. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit smoother to play up to speed. So up to you whether you have that hammer on in there or whether you want to pick all of those notes. Then we've got a bend at the 4th fret, and then a pull off from B to A, and then back to this F sharp note. And you're going to want to have really good control over your bends here. So with these bends, it's a tone bend, it's a kind of whole step bend, and you want to just cut that bend a little bit short at the top of the bend. So I tend to do that by just touching the bent note with my pick, letting it just come up and hit the pick to mute the note. You can just use the side of your picking hand as well. And then we've got this. So it's the same as the opening notes, and then bend, B, A, B. That's the opening 2 bars. So remember coming in on beat 4. 1, 2, 3. And then we've got the first of our 2-bar kind of fills, and the first one goes like this. So it's all based on this bend, just bending the B up to a C sharp, coming in on the offbeat here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Just playing that 3 times. And then coming down the scale from this C sharp, and then A and B. So if we put all of that together, you've got the first 4-bar phrase. 2, 3. Then into the next 4-bar phrase, and all of these 4-bar phrases start off in pretty much the same way. So tiny little variation at the end of that phrase. And then we're into the next fill, which is one of my favourite parts of the tune, I think. It goes like this. So, lovely kind of country chicken picking thing here. We're sliding up into that box shape which I mentioned earlier. So sliding from the B to the C sharp, then over to this high A, C sharp, F sharp and A. This is where I'm using a little bit of hybrid picking. So I'm using my pick and then the middle finger of my picking hand. So pick, and then that's my first note that I'm playing with the middle finger. So it's really just the middle finger that I'm using on the top string here, I think. And you could use a couple of fingers on your picking hand if you wanted to, but I tend to just use my pick and then the middle finger of my picking hand. And then we continue. repeat those notes, the F sharp and the A, and coming down the scale, and then sliding back down into this main scale pattern. And then next we've got this. So we've got the bend, the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and this high F sharp, again getting that note with the middle finger of my picking hand, and then this B note unbent, and then E, the F sharp again. You've got kind of a muted note there. You could play that E again, but I'm really just hearing that as a muted note, or just muted B string. Coming down the scale, a little slide there, you've got that kind of bluesy sound there. It's the 5th fret to the 4th fret. So if I put all of that 4-bar phrase together, we've got 1, 2, 3. Really fantastic stuff. And then we're going to continue in more or less the same way, just with some slightly different fills. So it's the same opening phrase. Then we're just into this quite simple bend, and then the high F sharp. So pick and middle finger of your picking hand. And we've just got 2 bars worth of that, so it's setting up that kind of 3 beats of the lick against the 4 beats in the bar. It's that kind of rhythmic, what do you call it exactly, rhythmic displacement kind of feeling what you got there. So you just have to kind of keep track of where the beat is. So come out of that phrase in the right way. Then we're continuing. That ends quite simply there, just with a hammer and pull there from A to B, and that's taking us into the next section of the tune. So then we're into this "You Really Got Me" style power chord thing, quite straightforward to play. So I'm starting off here with 5th string root power chords, just 2-note power chords, and then sliding up 2 frets, back again, and then up again. When I'm playing these 2-note power chords, I tend to use my 1st finger and then my little finger for some reason. It just kind of seems more natural to play it that way. It's just the natural shape of my hand. When I could play it with 1st and 3rd fingers, but immediately it feels like there's more muscles being used, more tension if I'm playing it like that. It's kind of much more relaxed just to grab the power chord like that. So that's an option. You can play it like that or like that. Doesn't make any difference to the sound, obviously. And then the same thing taken over to the lower strings. And then we're coming down to an E. I'm just playing the lowest notes in an E chord there, so really just that power chord. Then things start repeating, and we're back to that main theme again. It's a little bit shorter. I think it's now 8 bars worth of that main theme played. I think pretty much the same as before. So it launches straight into that chicken picking thing when it comes in the second time round. So we've got that lick down here into that chicken picking lick in this box here, and then we've got the bending lick in this position down here. And then I think we're into kind of a breakdown section of the tune. You're back to that fuzz bass line, and then we've got the main theme again with some further variations. So then we're we're into this fill here, so it's similar to what we had before, but the top note has changed. Now we're bending and we've got this high 8 on top. So again, just feeling the beat there. You've got 2 bars worth of that. Then continuing as before. Kind of got the same lick there, but it's coming in a different place. We're going into the high chicken picking bit, and then we're ending slightly differently. Now we've got, so bend, bend, and then coming down the scale. Into the "You Really Got Me" bit again. Then we're into the main theme for one last time. We've got some further little variations in there. It starts like this. So there we've got the fill is the bend with the F sharp on top that we've had before. Then we've got this. So a further nice variation in there. The phrase opens the usual way. And then we've got this. Another nice country style phrase. We've got that kind of bluesy note in there. Sliding up into our chicken picking idea. And then we're ending with this. Just end on an A chord there. I think on the original recording it just fades out at that point. So there we are, loads of really good stuff in there. You've obviously got the option to learn all of that note for note if you want to, and that's not a bad idea. There's loads of great stuff in here. It's a great technical workout for working on your bending, your hybrid picking, your timing, lots of good stuff in there. Or you could just kind of mine the tune for licks to steal. So in particular, this one is great. Easily steal that and use it in all kinds of different places, or this one here. So lots of options you've got there. Let's talk gear then. And on the original recording, I'm assuming the lead guitar stuff is all played by Noki Edwards. He was kind of the Ventures lead guitar player, and at this point in their career I think the Ventures were probably playing their Mosrite guitars. I think in the early days of the Ventures they were playing Jazz Masters, but by this point they'd moved on to those cool looking Mosrite guitars, and I don't have one of those, so I'm just trying to get reasonably close to the sound on the record with the gear that I've got. So I have my Trent Model 1 guitar. I'm on the bridge pickup. They've got a pair of P90s in here. These are great sounding pickups. There's a lot of bite, but it never tends to get too harsh. Amp wise, I'm using my Fender Princeton. A couple of pedals. I've got the small speaker overdrive from Great Eastern Effects, which again sounds really, really good. And you might be wondering, I've got an amp here with a small speaker. Why do I need a small speaker overdrive on top of that? And the answer is it just sounds good to my ears. It's a really characterful, very natural sounding overdrive, which I think works well for this song. And I'm also using a compressor pedal. This is the Cali 76 from Origin Effects. Just a little bit of compression. It just helps with the attack, I think, when you want to hear the pick strokes coming through. So I've just got that blended in. It's got a kind of wet dry control on this pedal, which is quite useful with compressors if you don't want a compressor to kind of suck the dynamic and the life out of your sound. So what I've done is just blended in a little bit of the original signal as well. So let's take a listen. This is just the clean sound guitar going straight into the amp. Add the compressor. And finally the overdrive. That's it for today's video. I was going to end by urging you to watch my other ventures stuff, but I don't think the timing is quite right for that unless you fancy getting into the Christmas spirit a little bit early. But you might like to check out some of my other country guitar videos. I've made lots of those. There's one in particular on chicken picking technique, which might be useful if you're struggling with some of the ideas that I've been discussing in this video. If you would like tab and backing track, that's going to be up on my Patreon page. Pay what you like, get access to that and all my other tabs, all my other backing tracks. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.